Hello, and welcome to English in Fluency. I am Alex, and I am so grateful that you have chosen to spend your time with me today, practicing your English listening skills. We are on this journey together. Today's topic is one of the most important we will ever discuss. It's not about grammar. It's not about vocabulary lists. It's about the feeling inside you. The topic is never give up. It's about how to keep going, even when, and especially when, it feels incredibly hard. Have you ever felt this way about your English? You start and you are so excited. You learn hello and my name is, and it feels wonderful. You make progress, but then you reach a certain point. Maybe it's the B1 level, a place where you know a lot, but you also realize how much you don't know. It feels like a giant flat wall. You study and study, but you don't feel like you are getting better. This is a very common feeling. It is called a plateau. A plateau is a high, flat area of land. In learning, it's a high, flat area of progress, where you feel stuck. You are not going up anymore. This is the moment when many people stop. They think, this is too hard. I am not good at this. I will never be fluent. I should just quit. That feeling, that voice in your head that says, give up, is a part of almost every important journey. But what you do when you hear that voice is what makes all the difference. Today, I want to tell you a very long, very detailed story about a man who heard that voice, not just once, but many times. His name was Thomas. This is a story about wood and dust and failure and the quiet, stubborn power of resilience. I want you to just listen. Relax. You don't need to understand every single word. Just try to follow the feeling, the story of Thomas. Let's begin. Thomas lived a life that was painted in the color gray. He woke up every morning at the same time, 6:30, when his alarm clock made a quiet, annoying sound. He put on a gray suit. He ate the same breakfast, a piece of toast, and drank a cup of coffee that was just okay. He went to work in a tall, gray building. He sat at a gray desk in a large, open office that was always too cold. His job was to look at numbers on a computer screen. He moved numbers from one place to another. He was good at it. He was reliable. But it brought him zero joy. The word joy means a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. Thomas's work had no joy. It was just a job. It paid his bills. It was his life. But Thomas had a secret. In the back of his small apartment, there was a tiny old wooden shed. A shed is a small building used for storing things. Thomas didn't store garden tools. He stored his dream. This shed was his world of color. When he stepped inside, the smell of pine and oak, the smell of sawdust, filled his nose. It was the best smell in the world to him. For years, Thomas had been learning woodworking. Woodworking is the activity or skill of making things from wood. It was his passion. Passion is a very strong, very powerful feeling of enthusiasm and love for something. His office job was his job. Woodworking was his passion. His shed was tiny. He could barely turn around. He had a few simple tools, a saw, a hammer, some chisels. He bought them one by one with any extra money he saved. On the weekends and at night, after his gray job, he would go to his shed. He would put on his old clothes, covered in sawdust, and he would make things. He started simple. He made a small, simple wooden box. It was not perfect. The corners were not exactly right. But when he finished, he held it in his hands. He had made this. He had taken a piece of plain, rough wood and turned it into something. It felt like magic. He made a picture frame. He made a small stool. He learned by reading old books from the library and by watching videos online. His dream was to have his own shop, not a tiny, cold shed. A real workshop with big windows and lots of light. He had a name for it in his head: Acorn Woodworks. An acorn is the small nut of the oak tree. It's a seed. It's a beginning. He dreamed of building beautiful, strong, simple furniture. Tables that families would eat at for 100 years. Chairs that were comfortable and strong. Bookshelves that would hold other people's dreams and stories. He wanted to make things that mattered. Things that lasted. He was tired of moving numbers on a screen. Numbers that disappeared at the end of the day. So, Thomas decided to get serious. He was good at small things, but could he make a real piece of furniture? He found a picture in an old magazine. It was a beautiful, complicated wooden chair. It had curved legs and a special woven seat. He thought, "This is it. If I can make this, I am a real woodworker. I am ready." He was filled with energy. He was also filled with impatience. Impatience is the feeling of being annoyed because you have to wait, or because something is taking a long time. He wanted to be a master now. This is just like learning English, isn't it? We see someone speaking fluently, like that beautiful finished chair. And we want to be like that now. We get impatient. We want to skip the simple boxes and picture frames of basic grammar and simple sentences. We want to run. But we are still learning to walk. Thomas was still learning to walk, but he wanted to run. He saved his money for 2 months and bought a beautiful, expensive piece of dark walnut wood. It was the most expensive wood he had ever touched. He was almost afraid to cut it. He took the magazine picture into his shed. He measured. He drew lines. He started to cut. It was much, much harder than he thought. The curves were difficult. The wood was hard. His simple tools were not really good enough for this job. He worked for an entire weekend. He didn't sleep. He was frustrated. Frustrated is that angry, disappointed feeling you get when you can't do something you are trying to do. He cut one leg. He cut the second. He tried to put them together. They didn't fit. The angle was wrong. He tried to force it. He pushed too hard. And then he heard the sound. A sound that broke his heart. Crack. The wood split. The beautiful, expensive piece of walnut wood had a giant, ugly crack all the way through it. It was ruined. He looked at the broken piece of wood. He looked at the magazine picture. And he looked at his own hands, covered in blisters and sawdust. He was not a master. He was a joke. He was a man in a shed, breaking expensive wood. He threw his hammer across the shed. It hit the wall with a loud bang. He sat down on the floor, on the piles of sawdust, and he felt a terrible cold wave of discouragement. Discouragement is that feeling of losing your confidence, of losing your hope. The voice in his head, the one that sounded a lot like his boss from the gray building, said, "You are a failure. You are just a man who moves numbers. You are pretending. Go back to your desk. Go back to what is safe. You will never be a woodworker. You should give up." He felt so much shame. Shame is the painful feeling you get when you believe you have done something wrong or foolish. He was ashamed of his dream. He was ashamed of his failure. For a whole month, he did not go into the shed. He locked the door. He just went to his gray job, came home, and watched television. He was hiding. He was letting the failure, the crack, define him. Let's pause here. Think about this. What is your broken chair? What is the thing in English that you tried to do, and you failed? Maybe you tried to have a long, complex conversation, and you just stopped. You couldn't find the words. You felt foolish. Maybe you took a big test, and you got a bad score. That feeling of crack, that feeling of, I am a failure. It is so powerful. What do you do with that feeling? Do you lock the door? Do you stop trying? It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel frustrated. Thomas's feelings were normal, but the story doesn't end here. After a month of his gray life, Thomas felt empty. The gray was worse than before, because now he wasn't just bored. He was bored, and he felt like a failure. One Saturday, he found the key to the shed in his pocket. He held it. It was cold. He went to the shed and opened the door. The smell of wood, even old, dusty wood, hit him. The broken chair pieces were still on the floor, exactly where he had left them. He looked at them. He picked up the broken piece of walnut. He studied the crack. He saw why it broke. He saw the grain of the wood. The grain is the natural lines in the wood. He had been pushing against the grain. He hadn't been paying attention. He had been impatient. He didn't throw the wood away. He took a saw and he carefully cut away the broken part. He was left with a smaller, but still beautiful, piece of wood. It was not big enough for a chair leg, but it was big enough for something else. He spent the entire day in the shed. He was not angry. He was not impatient. He was quiet. He was listening to the wood. He worked slowly. At the end of the day, he had made a small, perfect, beautiful box. The dark walnut wood was smooth. The corners were perfect. He had learned from his failure. This was the first great lesson for Thomas. Failure is not an end. It is a teacher. It is information. It tells you what is not working. He realized he didn't need to build the perfect chair today. He needed to learn the fundamentals. The fundamentals are the most basic and important parts of something. He needed to get really, really good at the fundamentals. He needed to make 100 perfect boxes before he could make one good chair. This is your English journey. When you make a mistake, when you crack a sentence, it is not the end. It is information. It is your teacher. It is telling you, oh, that's not how the past tense works. Or, that's not the right word. Don't feel shame. Feel curious. Curious means you are interested. You want to learn more. Why did that break? Why was that a mistake? When you get curious about your mistakes, you stop being a victim of them, and you start being a student of them. Thomas was a student again. So Thomas changed his plan. He forgot the big fancy chair. He focused on the fundamentals. He practiced making perfect joints. A joint is where two pieces of wood come together. He practiced sanding, making the wood perfectly smooth. He made more boxes. He made simple bookshelves. He made picture frames. He got better. He became a craftsman. A craftsman is a person who is very skilled at a job, especially one that involves making things with their hands. He wasn't a master yet, but he was a good, solid craftsman. His shed was full of beautiful, simple things. But now he had a new problem. His shed was full. He had no more space, and he had no money to buy more wood. He knew the next step. He had to start selling his work. He needed to turn his passion into a business. But this required two things he did not have: more space and more money. He thought, I need a real workshop. I need to quit my gray job. He did his research. He found a small, empty garage for rent. It was not big, but it was bigger than his shed. But to rent it, and to buy the new tools he needed, he would need a loan. A loan is when a bank gives you money, and you have to pay it back over time. Thomas was a man who worked with numbers, so he made a plan, a business plan. He spent weeks on it. He calculated the cost of the rent, the tools, the wood. He calculated how many boxes and bookshelves he would need to sell to make a profit. He was very proud of his plan. It was full of numbers. It looked professional. He made an appointment at a small local bank. He put on his best suit, a blue one, not his gray one. He was so nervous. His heart was beating like a drum. He sat in a small office across from a woman named Miss Evans. She was polite, but very serious. She looked at his plan. She looked at the photos of his work. Thomas talked. He talked about his passion. He talked about the quality of his work. He talked about his dream. Acorn Woodworks. Ms. Evans listened. She did not smile. When he was finished, she folded her hands on her desk. She said, "Mr. Green, your woodworking is lovely." "It's a very nice hobby." Thomas felt a cold feeling in his stomach. The word hobby. "But," she continued, "a business plan is not just about passion. It is about the market. The market for custom-made furniture is very small. It is saturated. Saturated means it is full, there is no more room. You are competing with huge factories that make furniture for very low prices. You have no professional experience in this business. You have no clients. You are asking the bank to take a very, very big risk on a hobby. I am sorry, Mr. Green. The bank cannot approve this loan. The answer is no. Number. It was just one small word, but it felt like a door slamming shut in his face. It felt like that crack in the wood, but this time the crack was in him. This was not a failure in his own shed. This was the world, the real, professional, serious world, telling him that his dream was stupid, that his passion was just a hobby. He felt all his confidence just evaporate. Evaporate means to turn into vapor, to disappear. His confidence was gone. He walked out of the bank. The city streets seemed louder and grayer than ever. He went home. He put his beautiful business plan, all his numbers and all his hopes, into a drawer. And he closed the drawer. He felt dejected. Dejected means sad and depressed. Dispirited. He thought, "She's right. She's a professional. She knows. Who am I? I'm just a guy in a shed. I'm just a number mover. It was a stupid dream. I should just be realistic." This is the second and often bigger obstacle. It's not just your own private failure. It's the world's rejection. Rejection is the act of not accepting something. The bank rejected him. In your English journey, this can be a bad grade on a big exam. It can be a job interview you wanted, and they said, "We are sorry, but your English is not good enough." It's an external voice, an authority, telling you no. This no is so much harder to ignore than your own doubts. It feels final. Thomas went back to his gray life. He went to work. He moved his numbers. He paid his bills. He didn't lock the shed this time. But he didn't go in with passion. He would go in and just sit. He would sweep the floor. He would organize his tools. He was not creating. He was just existing. He was in a long, sad dip. He was stuck. He had accepted the no. For many people, this is the end of the story. The dream dies in a drawer. But Thomas had a friend. His friend's name was Ben. Ben was a happy, loud person who sold cars. He was the opposite of Thomas. One evening, Ben came over. He said, "Thomas, I haven't seen you in weeks. You look terrible. You look gray. What is wrong?" Thomas didn't want to talk about it. It was too embarrassing. But Ben kept asking, Finally, Thomas told him. He told him about the chair, the bank, Miss Evans, the hobby, the no. Ben listened. He didn't laugh. When Thomas was finished, Ben was quiet for a minute. Then he said, "Okay." So, one person, at one bank, said no. "This Miss Evans, does she know woodworking? Does she know you? Does she know how good you are?" "Number. She knows numbers. You showed her numbers, but she hasn't seen the work. She hasn't touched it." Thomas said, "But she's right. I have no clients. I have no experience." Ben leaned forward. "So, go get some. You're thinking too big, man. You tried to build a whole house and they said no. So, start with one brick. You can't rent a shop? Fine. Who needs a shop? Where do people sell crafts?" Thomas didn't know. "The farmer's market," Ben said. "The town market on Saturdays. People sell vegetables, jam, and all kinds of handmade stuff. You should go there." Thomas had a bad feeling. A market? Outside? With people? Thomas was an introvert. He liked his quiet shed. The idea of talking to hundreds of strangers, it was terrifying. "I don't know," he said. Ben rolled his eyes. "What's worse? Talking to a few people on a Saturday, or being this gray, sad guy for the rest of your life?" "The bank said no to the loan. They didn't say no to you. You are the one who is saying no to you." Those words hit Thomas. You are the one who is saying no to you. He had let Miss Evans's no become his no. This is a critical, critical moment. Do you internalize the rejection? Internalize means to make a feeling or belief a part of your own way of thinking. Do you internalize the bad grade? Do you start to believe I am bad at English? Or do you find another way? Thomas was scared, but his friend Ben's words made him a little bit angry. And sometimes, anger is a good motivator. A motivator is something that gives you a reason to act. He was angry at Miss Evans. He was angry at his gray life. And he was angry at himself for giving up so easily. He thought, "Okay, I can't get a shop, but I can get a table." He changed his plan. He adapted. This is a key part of never giving up. It is not about hitting your head against the same locked door again and again. It is about being persistent in your goal, but flexible in your method. The goal, the dream, is I want to be a woodworker. The method, the plan, was get a big loan, open a shop. That method failed, so he had to find a new method. The new method was sell small things at a market. This is so important for your English. Your goal is fluency. Your method might be, I will study grammar books for 4 hours every day. And maybe that method is not working. You are bored, you are frustrated, you are quitting. Do not give up on the goal. But please, be flexible with the method. If the grammar book is a locked door, find a window. Watch a movie. Listen to a podcast, like this one. Talk to a friend. Find a method that works for you. Find a new way. So, Thomas found a new way. He applied for a spot at the local Saturday market. It cost a little bit of money, but not much. He spent the next 2 weeks in his shed. But this time, he was working with a purpose. He wasn't making big tables. He was making things people could carry. He made his beautiful walnut boxes. He made elegant, simple picture frames. He made wooden spoons and cutting boards for kitchens. He made a whole collection of small, beautiful, affordable things. He was using all the fundamentals he had practiced. The first Saturday came. He had to wake up at 4 in the morning. It was dark and cold. He packed his car. He was so nervous, he felt sick. He got to the market. He set up his table. He put a nice cloth on it. He arranged his wooden items. They looked beautiful. The morning light hit the wood. He was proud. And then the market opened. People started to arrive. Hundreds of people. They walked by his table. They looked. And they kept walking. One person after another. They would glance at his table and just walk by. For 1 hour, not a single person stopped. Not one. Thomas stood behind his table trying to smile, but he felt that old, familiar, cold feeling. Rejection. Again. But this time, it was not one person. It was hundreds of people. The voice in his head came back. See? They don't care. Your work is nice, but nobody wants it. This was a stupid idea. You are a hobbyist. You are a failure. He wanted to pack up his things. He was so close to just leaving. He looked at all his beautiful work, and he felt like crying. But then he remembered his friend Ben's words. You are the one saying no to you. And he remembered the lesson from the broken chair. He had been impatient, and now he was being passive. Passive means you are just letting things happen to you. You are not taking action. He was just standing behind his table, waiting. He was like a fisherman with a line in the water, but he was hiding behind a tree. He thought, what did I learn from the market in the movie? Oh, wait, that was the other story. What did I learn? He thought about his own lessons. What did I learn from the broken chair? I was impatient. What did I learn from the bank? I was trying to do it all at once. He thought, what is the problem now? The problem is, they are not touching the wood. They are just looking. If they touched it, they would understand. So he did something that was incredibly hard for him. He took a deep breath. He picked up one of his small, perfect walnut boxes. He stepped out from behind his table. He stood in front of it. And when the next person walked by, a woman who looked friendly, Thomas smiled, a real, terrified smile. And he said, Good morning. Would you like to hold this? He didn't say, buy this. He said, hold this. The woman was surprised. She stopped. She said, oh, okay. Thomas put the small box into her hands. She held it. Her whole face changed. Oh, she said, this is beautiful. She ran her fingers over the smooth wood. She felt the weight of it. She opened it and saw the perfect tiny joints inside. This is real, isn't it? This isn't from a factory. Thomas found his voice. No, ma'am. I make them all myself, by hand, in my workshop. The woman's eyes lit up. This is incredible. How much is it? That day, Thomas sold almost everything. He didn't just sell things. He talked to people. He told them his story. He told them about the wood. He learned what they liked. He learned what they thought was too expensive. He learned what they were looking for. He went home that night with an empty car and a wallet that was not full, but it was not empty. And his heart was full. He had not just made money. He had made connections. He had found his first customers. He had found his yes. It wasn't a big yes from a bank. It was 100 small yeses from real people. This is the fuel for your English journey. You don't need a big yes from a test. You need the small yes of a stranger understanding you when you ask for directions. You need the small yes of watching a YouTube video and understanding the main idea. You need the small yes of writing a comment in English and someone liking it. These are your small boxes. Look for them. Celebrate them. They are the fuel that will keep you going. So, Thomas had found his new method. But now came the hardest part of all. It was not the dramatic failure. It was not the exciting first sale. It was the grind. The grind is the long, slow, boring, difficult work that you have to do every day to reach a goal. Thomas did not quit his gray job. He couldn't. He needed the money. So, his life became a cycle of hard work. He woke up at 5 in the morning. He worked in his shed from 5:30 to 7:30, making things for the market. Then, he put on his gray suit, went to his gray job, and moved numbers from 9 to 5. He came home, ate a quick dinner, and went back into his shed from 7 until 10 at night. On Saturdays, he was at the market from 4 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. On Sundays, he bought wood and prepared for the week. He did this every week for 3 whole years. Think about that. 3 years. Not 3 weeks. Not 3 months. 3 years. This is the part of never give up that nobody talks about. It's not the big, exciting movie moment. It's the monotony. Monotony is when something is boring, because it is always the same. His life was a grind. He was tired. All the time. His friends stopped inviting him to parties because he always said no. He didn't have time. His back hurt. His hands were covered in small cuts and hard calluses. A callus is a hard, thick area of skin. He was saving every extra dollar. He was putting it all into his Acorn Woodworks savings account. There were so many days he wanted to quit. Not because of a big failure, but just because of exhaustion. Exhaustion is the feeling of being extremely tired. He would wake up at 5, and it was dark and cold, and he would think, I can't do it today. I just want to sleep. I just want a normal life. This is the B1 plateau. This is the grind of your English. You practice every day. You listen. You read. But you feel tired. You are not making big, exciting progress. You are not a beginner anymore, so you don't get the easy wins. You are not a master, so you can't just be fluent. You are in the middle. The long, hard, slow middle. And this, my friends, this grind, this is where most people give up. This is the true test of never give up. Can you keep going when it is boring? Can you keep going when you are tired? Can you keep going when you are not seeing big results, but you are just trusting the process? Trusting the process means you believe that if you do the small things every day, it will, eventually, lead to the big result. Thomas trusted the process. What kept him going? 2 things. First, his small yeses at the market, his regular customers, the people who came back week after week. Thomas, they would say, I gave that box to my daughter, and she cried, it was so beautiful. Or, that cutting board is the best I've ever used. These small connections were his fuel. Second, his savings account. He could see the number. It was going up. Slowly. So slowly. But it was progress. It was tangible. Tangible means real. Something you can see and touch. For your English, you need this too. You need tangible proof of your progress. You can't just feel it. So, write it down. Keep a journal. Today, I learned 5 new words. This week, I listened to a 30-minute podcast. Last month, I couldn't do that. That is your tangible progress. That is your savings account. You also need your yeses, your community. Talk to people. Find a study partner. Join a group. When you get a good job from someone, that is your fuel. That is your customer telling you your box is beautiful. After 3 years of the grind, Thomas looked at his savings account. It was enough. It was not enough to open a big, fancy shop. But it was enough. Enough to rent that small, ugly, damp garage he had seen 3 years ago. It was enough to quit his gray job for maybe 6 months, if he was very, very careful. It was the biggest risk of his life. He gave his notice at his job. Notice is the formal announcement that you are leaving a job. His boss was shocked. But, "You are so reliable, Thomas." Thomas just smiled. He walked out of that gray building for the last time. He felt terrified, and he felt exhilarated. Exhilarated means extremely happy, excited, and full of energy. He was finally, really, doing it. He rented the garage. It was terrible. It was dark. It was dirty. The roof leaked. He spent the first month not building furniture. He spent it cleaning. He patched the roof. He painted the walls bright white to make it feel bigger. He put in strong lights. He moved his tools out of his tiny shed and into this new, big, to him, space. He hung a small, hand-carved sign over the door. It said, "Acorn Woodworks." He stood back and looked at it. And for the first time in his adult life, he felt proud. He was in his dip. The dip is the period after the big, exciting start. But before the success, he had no job. He had no customers, except his market people. And he had all his savings, all his hope, in this one small, damp garage. The grind was over, and the fear was back. He got his first big commission. A commission is when someone pays you to create a special piece of work, just for them. A new cafe was opening in town. The owner had seen his work at the market. She said, "Thomas, I love your style. It's simple. It's strong. I need 10 tables and 20 chairs." Thomas's heart stopped. This was it. This was the yes he had been waiting for. This was the chair he had failed to build years ago. But now, he was ready. He knew how to do it. He bought the wood. He worked. He worked 14 hours a day. He was not tired. He was energized. He was in his shop, his own shop. He was making real furniture. The tables were beautiful. The chairs were strong and comfortable. He was almost finished. He had one more week of work. He was going to deliver them. He was going to get paid. He was going to be a real woodworker. He locked up the shop one night. He was so happy. He went home and slept, for the first time in weeks, a deep, peaceful sleep. The next morning, he woke up early, made coffee, and went to his workshop. He put his key in the lock, but the door was wet. The bottom of the door was dark and swollen. He felt a terrible, cold dread. He pushed the door open. It was a nightmare. The shop was flooded. Not with a little water, with inches of dirty water. A pipe in the apartment above his garage had burst during the night. The water had been pouring down all night long. It was everywhere. He waded into the shop. His tools, his expensive power tools, were on the floor, covered in water. They were rusted. They were ruined. And the tables, the 10 beautiful tables, they were ruined. The wood had soaked up the dirty water. It was warped. Warped means the wood was bent and twisted out of shape. The chairs, ruined. Everything. All his work. All his money. All his hope. It was all floating in 3 inches of dirty, cold water. Thomas just stopped. He couldn't breathe. This was not a crack. This was not a no. This was annihilation. Annihilation means complete destruction. He had no insurance for this. He was just a small renter. The apartment owner's insurance would fix the pipe. It would not fix his life. It would not replace his tools. It would not replace the tables for the cafe. He had failed. He had lost everything. He had quit his job. He had spent all his savings. And now he had nothing. He had a flooded, ruined garage. He sat down on a wet stool in the middle of the disaster, and he did not cry. He was beyond tears. He was just empty. The voice came back. But this time, it was not a whisper. It was a shout. It is over. You are finished. You are a fool. You gave up a safe job for this. You are a complete and total failure. Give up, give up, give up. And this time, Thomas agreed. The voice was right. It was over. He had tried. He had failed. He couldn't. There was no new method now. There was no flexibility. There was just the end. He sat there for hours, just staring. He decided. He would go. He would call his old boss. He would beg for his gray job back. He would sell the broken tools for scrap. He would just stop. This is the moment. This is the final boss of giving up. It's the catastrophe. It's when you have tried everything. You were persistent. You were flexible. You worked the grind. And still, you end up in a flooded workshop. It feels like the universe is just against you. In English, this is the moment you have a huge public failure. Maybe you give a presentation in English, and you freeze. You forget everything, and your boss is there, and your colleagues are there, and it is a catastrophe. You don't gas, I will never, ever speak English in public again. I quit. This feeling is so powerful, it can end a dream forever. Thomas was in that moment. He was done. He stood up. His legs were wet and cold. He was going to go home and make the call. As he opened the door to leave, he almost ran into someone. It was Sarah. Sarah was the woman who sold pottery at the market, at the table next to him. She was holding a box of coffee and donuts. She looked at him, and then she looked past him into the flooded workshop. Her smile disappeared. Her eyes went wide. "Oh, Thomas." "Oh, no." She didn't say, "It will be okay." She didn't say, "What happened?" She just looked at the mess. And then she looked at Thomas's face. She saw the despair. Despair is the feeling of having no hope at all. She put the coffee box on a dry shelf. She looked at the water. She looked at the mess. Then she walked past him, into the shop. She grabbed an old broom, and she started sweeping the water, pushing it out the door. Thomas just stared at her. "Sarah, what are you doing? It's over. It's all ruined." Sarah didn't look at him. She just kept sweeping. "It's not over," she said, her voice angry. "It's just wet. Now, are you going to stand there, or are you going to find a bucket?" Thomas was so shocked, he didn't move. She stopped sweeping and looked at him. "Thomas! Bucket!" "Now! We have to get this water out before it ruins the walls." It was the now that moved him. It was an order. It was a plan. It was not fix your life. It was find a bucket. It was a small, simple next step. He found a bucket. He started bailing water. Bailing is scooping water out of a place. They worked in silence for 10 minutes. Then Ben, his friend who sold cars, showed up. Sarah had called him. Ben looked at the mess and said a few bad words. Then he said, "Okay, I'll go to the hardware store. We need a wet vac, a big vacuum for water. We need fans. We need a lot of towels." And he left. An hour later, the shop was full of people. Sarah, Ben, the old woman who bought his first box, she was there, making coffee for everyone. The cafe owner, the one who was waiting for her tables, she was there. She was not angry. She was crying, but she was helping. Other vendors from the market, they just showed up. They were a team. They were his community. They spent the entire day cleaning. They moved all the warped wood outside. They dried the tools, one by one. They set up huge fans. By the end of the day, the shop was empty. And it was clean. And it was dry. It was just a white, empty room again. All his work was gone, but the shop was saved. Everyone was exhausted. They were sitting around, drinking coffee. Thomas looked at them. He didn't know what to say. He just said, "Thank you. I can't. I have no money to. I can't pay any of you." Ben laughed. "Shut up, Thomas. We're not here for money. We're here for you." The cafe owner, Maria, came and sat next to him. "Thomas," she said, "the tables, they are gone." "I know." Thomas couldn't look at her. "I'm so sorry, Maria. I failed." She put her hand on his arm. "You didn't fail, Thomas. A pipe burst. That is not failure. That is bad luck. Now, the wood is ruined. Your tools are rusted. But are you broken? Are your hands broken?" Thomas looked at his hands. They were dirty and tired, but they were fine. "No," he said. "Good," she said, "because I still need my tables. I will wait. You are my woodworker. I will pay you half the money now, so you can buy new wood, so you can fix your tools. This is not a gift. It is an advance. An advance is when you get paid for work before you finish it. Do we have a deal?" Thomas looked at her. He looked at Ben. He looked at Sarah. He looked at his community. They were not just his customers. They were his friends. They believed in him, even when he had given up on himself. This is the power of resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover quickly from difficulties. It's toughness. But Thomas learned something very important. Resilience is not just inside you. Sometimes resilience is outside you. It is your community. It is the people who show up with a broom and a bucket. It's the people who believe in you when you can't believe in yourself. This is what I want this channel, English in Fluency, to be for you. We are your community. When you are in your flooded workshop, when you feel you have failed, when you want to quit, we are here. The other people listening, me. We are here to say, it's not over. It's just hard. Grab a bucket. What's the next small step? Thomas took the advance. He bought new wood. He and Ben spent a week, carefully, patiently, cleaning and fixing his tools. Some were too broken, but many were saved. He started again. He built the 10 tables and 20 chairs. Again. And this time, they were even better. Because he was not just building them with skill, he was building them with gratitude. Gratitude is the feeling of being thankful. He was thankful for his hands. He was thankful for his friends. He was thankful for the second chance. He delivered the tables. Maria cried. She was so happy. Her cafe opened. People came. And they all said, "Where did you get this beautiful furniture?" And she would point to a small sign on the wall. It said, "All tables and chairs built by our friend, Thomas Green, at Acorn Woodworks." Thomas's story does not end with him becoming a millionaire. It does not end with him having a giant factory. That was never his dream. His dream was to be a woodworker, and that is what he became. Years later, he still has his small shop. It's not damp anymore. It's warm and full of light. He has one apprentice. An apprentice is a young person who works for someone to learn their skill. He teaches her. He is still at the market on Saturdays, not because he needs the money, but because he loves his community. He builds beautiful things for people who appreciate them. He is not rich, but he is content. Content is a feeling of quiet happiness and satisfaction. He wakes up every morning and he goes to a place he loves, to do work that he loves. He never went back to the gray building. He built his own life, one piece of wood at a time. He never gave up. But never giving up did not mean he was always strong. It meant he was human. He failed, He got angry. He got sad. He got dejected. He was devastated. He despaired. He had all the feelings. But he processed those feelings, and he found a way to take the next step. He learned from the broken chair. He adapted after the bank's no. He survived the grind, and he accepted help during the catastrophe. That is the journey. It is your English journey. You will have broken chairs, your grammar mistakes. You will have people who say no, your bad test scores. You will have the grind, the long, boring B1 plateau. And you might even have a catastrophe, a big public failure that makes you want to quit forever. When that happens, I want you to remember Thomas. Remember his story. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to be tired. But do not let that be the end of your story. Find your small box, your small win. Be persistent in your dream, but be flexible in your method. Trust the process. And most importantly, find your community. Find the people who will show up with a bucket when your shop is flooded. Thank you so much for listening to this very long story with me today. Thank you for being a part of this community. I am Alex, and this is English in Fluency. We are here for you. We believe in you. You are not a failure. You are a learner. And you are on a beautiful, difficult, and wonderful journey. If you found this story helpful, and if you want to be a part of our community, please subscribe to the channel. That is your small yes to us, and it gives us the fuel to keep going. We will be back with more stories, more practice, and more encouragement. But for now, just think about this. What is your one next step? Not the whole chair, just the next small piece. Find your bucket. Until next time, keep going. You can do this.